The courtroom was buzzing with low whispers that morning. The case was an important one, and people had gathered from different parts of the city to watch. The walls were high, the wooden benches were full, and the air was heavy with the seriousness of justice. Yet when a teenager walked in, carrying only a small notebook in his hand, the attention of everyone shifted. The boy's name was Ravi. His steps were steady, but his simple clothes and young face made him stand out in a place where everyone else looked much older and more experienced. Most people thought he was there to watch the trial, maybe as a curious student or perhaps just to pass time. Nobody imagined he had any role to play in the proceedings. As the lawyers spoke, Ravi listened carefully. His eyes followed each detail, and his notebook filled with small notes written in his neat handwriting. The case involved a local shop owner who was accused of fraud, and both sides were presenting their arguments. The judge, an older man with stern eyes, asked questions from time to time, and the lawyers answered with confidence. Then, to everyone's surprise, Ravi stood up. His voice was not loud, but it carried enough firmness to be noticed. He asked if he could say something. For a moment, the entire courtroom froze. The judge looked at him with disbelief, as if a child had suddenly interrupted an important lecture. Then a smile spread across the judge's face. "What is this?" the judge asked. "Do you think this is a classroom where students can raise their hand and share their ideas?" His words were sharp but carried a mocking tone. The people in the benches laughed. Some even shook their heads, whispering that this boy was foolish. A few lawyers exchanged grins, amused by what they thought would be a silly moment. But Ravi did not step back. He looked at the judge calmly and said he had information that might help. His steady tone surprised a few listeners, but most still saw him as a child trying to play a game. The judge leaned forward. "And what information could you possibly have? Are you studying law in school already? Do you think you can stand where trained attorneys stand?" His words dripped with sarcasm, and again the room filled with laughter. The sound echoed through the chamber, but Ravi remained quiet until the noise faded. "Sir," Ravi said politely, "I am not here to make fun of the court. I only wish to share something important. If I'm wrong, I will sit back down." The calmness in his voice caught the attention of a few people who were now watching him with curiosity instead of mockery. The judge, still amused but also slightly intrigued, decided to allow him. He waved his hand dismissively and said, "Very well. Speak then. Let us hear what the young boy thinks he knows." The courtroom grew quieter, though a few chuckles remained in the air. Ravi opened his notebook. His eyes scanned the pages, and then he began to speak. At first his words seemed ordinary, but within moments the atmosphere began to shift. He pointed out a detail in the documents that had been presented earlier. He explained that one of the statements given by the opposing side did not match the records submitted. His tone was respectful, but his logic was sharp. He did not shout, nor did he try to act dramatic. Instead, he laid out his point step by step in clear and simple language. The laughter slowly died down. People leaned forward, listening carefully. The lawyers who had been amused a moment ago now looked at each other, surprised. The judge, who had been smiling at first, adjusted his glasses and studied the boy more closely. Ravi continued. He showed how a piece of evidence was being misunderstood and explained the correct interpretation. He even referred to a section of law that most ordinary people would not know. His memory was exact, and his explanation made the complicated rule sound simple. By the time he paused to take a breath, the courtroom had changed completely. There was no more laughter. Instead, there was silence, the kind of silence that falls when something unexpected has taken place. The judge no longer mocked him. He tapped his pen on the desk slowly, his expression thoughtful. The lawyers on both sides were unsettled. Some of the people sitting on the benches whispered softly, wondering how a teenager could speak with such confidence and clarity. For the first time that morning, Ravi's young age no longer seemed like a weakness. His presence carried a weight that could not be ignored. The judge leaned back in his chair and looked at him carefully. He did not smile now. Instead, he spoke in a firm voice. "Very well, young man. If you claim you can help, then continue. But be warned, this is no place for games. If you speak nonsense, you will be asked to leave immediately." Ravi nodded with respect. He did not show fear, nor did he appear nervous. His eyes returned to his notebook, and his hands held it with steady confidence. He was ready to continue while the rest of the courtroom waited to see what he would say next. The laughter was gone. What remained was curiosity, silence, and the beginning of something extraordinary. The room was tense after Ravi's first few words. Everyone had been laughing before, but now their faces showed curiosity. The judge no longer had a mocking smile. Instead, he sat upright, watching every move the teenager made. The lawyers who had been grinning now looked uneasy, and the audience leaned forward on their benches. Ravi turned a page in his notebook and spoke again. His tone was calm, but his words carried weight. "Sir," he said to the judge, "the shop owner is accused of fraud. The claim is that he altered numbers in his sales record, but if you compare the dates in the receipts presented today, you will see they do not match the statements given by the witness." The judge raised his eyebrows. He had seen those papers already, but he had not noticed the mismatch. He glanced toward the lawyer who had presented them. That lawyer adjusted his coat nervously, unsure of how to respond. The judge leaned forward. "Are you suggesting the evidence is faulty?" "Yes, sir," Ravi replied politely. "Not only faulty, but also incomplete. If you allow, I can explain further." A murmur ran through the benches. Nobody had expected such confidence from someone so young. The judge tapped his pen slowly on the wooden desk, then nodded. "Very well, explain." Ravi cleared his throat. He pointed to one receipt where the date clearly showed a day that did not match the testimony of the witness. Then he explained how the same mistake appeared in 2 more documents. His explanation was simple enough for everyone to understand, yet strong enough to raise doubt about the accusation. The lawyer of the opposing side finally spoke. "This boy has no standing in court," he said in a loud voice. "He cannot be allowed to present arguments. He is not an attorney." The judge looked at Ravi again. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, with a calm tone, the judge said, "He may not be an attorney, but he has pointed out something important, and I want to hear what else he has to say. Sit down." The lawyer sat down reluctantly, clearly unhappy. The audience whispered again, impressed by the unusual turn of events. Ravi continued, flipping another page of his notebook. He spoke about how numbers in the account book were being misread. He showed how the mistake created the illusion of fraud, when in fact it could be explained by a simple error in calculation. His explanation was so clear that even people with no knowledge of law could follow it. As he spoke, his eyes never showed fear. His voice did not tremble. He was young, but the strength of his words made him appear much older. The judge asked questions now and then, testing him, but Ravi answered each one with clarity. The more he spoke, the more the courtroom realized that this boy was not here for fun. He had studied the case deeply. At one point, the judge leaned back and said, "Young man, you claim a lot. What makes you so sure of these details? Have you been studying this case on your own?" Ravi paused. He did not want to reveal too much, but he also did not wish to lie. "Sir," he said, "I read about the case in the public reports. I compared the documents that were available. What I found did not match, so I decided to attend the hearing. I believe the truth should be shown." The judge looked at him closely. His eyes softened a little. "And you are how old?" 17, sir," Ravi replied. The audience gasped softly. Some shook their heads in disbelief. The thought that a teenager could notice mistakes that trained lawyers had missed was shocking. The opposing lawyer tried again to interrupt. "This is outrageous. We cannot allow a teenager to turn this courtroom into a stage. He has no authority here." But this time even the judge seemed irritated by the interruption. "Sit down," he ordered firmly. "I will decide who speaks and who does not. And right now I want to hear him." The lawyer sat down angrily, realizing that arguing further would only make things worse. Ravi continued his explanation. He described how the shop owner's record book had been copied incorrectly. He even pointed out the handwriting difference in one section, suggesting that someone else might have altered it. His attention to detail shocked everyone. The judge finally raised his hand for silence. "Enough," he said. The room went still. He looked directly at Ravi. "You speak with confidence and your words are not without logic. But I must ask you, do you understand the seriousness of standing in this courtroom? If you are wrong, this could affect a man's life." Ravi looked back at him with steady eyes. "I understand, sir. That is why I came. Because I believe what is being shown is not the full truth." For a moment, the judge remained quiet. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well. I will allow you to continue tomorrow when the court resumes. You may prepare your notes. But remember, this is not a game. If you wish to speak again, you must be ready to stand by every word." The gavel struck, signaling the end of the session. The crowd began to leave, buzzing with excitement. Nobody was talking about the lawyers anymore. Everyone was talking about the teenager who had dared to speak and had not been silenced. Ravi closed his notebook and held it against his chest. He had been laughed at in the beginning, but now he had earned silence, attention, and curiosity. Tomorrow would be harder, but he was ready. The first step had been taken. The door to something greater was opening. The next morning, the courtroom was even more crowded than before. News had spread about the teenager who spoke like an attorney. People wanted to see if it was true or just an exaggeration. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they could not believe a 17-year-old had stood in court and spoken with such confidence. Ravi arrived quietly, holding his small notebook as always. He walked past groups of people whispering about him. Some looked at him with respect, others with doubt. A few laughed, thinking that yesterday might have been a lucky moment and today he would fail. Ravi ignored all of it. His steps were steady and his eyes focused on the front of the courtroom. The judge entered and the room fell silent. His face was serious, but his eyes searched the benches until they landed on Ravi. Without any delay, he spoke. "Young man, yesterday you made some bold claims. Today you may continue, but remember my warning. Every word must be backed by reason. If you make mistakes, you will not be allowed to speak again." "Yes, sir," Ravi answered with respect. The opposing lawyer immediately stood up. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Allowing a boy to speak in court is against practice. He has no license, no position, and no right to argue here. Yesterday may have entertained the public, but today we must return to the rules of law." The judge raised his hand. "I decide the rules in this courtroom. Sit down." His tone was so firm that the lawyer had no choice but to obey. The room buzzed with surprise at how strongly the judge had defended Ravi's chance to speak. Ravi opened his notebook and began. His voice was calm and his words were simple. He explained again how the receipts did not match the statements of the witness. Then he took another step forward. He introduced a timeline he had drawn himself, showing the flow of transactions day by day. On one side of the timeline were the receipts, on the other side the witness statements. The mismatches were clear. Anyone could see them. Gasps ran through the audience. Even people sitting at the back could understand. The jury leaned forward to study the drawings Ravi had prepared. His way of presenting was not dramatic but logical. He spoke as though teaching a class, making sure every person could follow him. The shop owner, sitting quietly on the defense bench, looked at Ravi with tears in his eyes. Until yesterday, he had felt hopeless. His lawyer was struggling and the evidence seemed to be against him. But now this boy was shining a light on details nobody else had cared to see. The judge asked, "How did you prepare all this?" "You cannot access the official documents," Ravi replied. "I read the reports published in newspapers and compared them with the public record. The numbers did not match, so I studied further. I made these notes myself." The judge nodded slowly, impressed. The jury members whispered among themselves, surprised at his dedication. The opposing lawyer tried again to interrupt. He shouted, "This boy is misleading the court. He is not trained. He may have made up these drawings." But before the judge could respond, Ravi spoke politely. "Sir, if I am wrong, then let the opposing lawyer explain why the receipts do not match. Let him prove me wrong with facts." The entire room went silent. All eyes turned toward the lawyer. He opened his mouth to speak but closed it again, unable to answer. The mismatches were real, and denying them would only weaken his side further. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an answer, counselor?" The lawyer shook his head reluctantly. "Not at this moment, Your Honor." The silence that followed was heavy. Nobody laughed now. The teenager who had been mocked yesterday was standing tall while the trained lawyer had no response. Ravi continued. He spoke about handwriting differences in the records. He explained how one section looked altered, as if someone had written over the original. His voice carried no anger, only determination. He wanted the truth to be seen. The audience watched in awe. Even those who had doubted him yesterday now whispered words of admiration. The shop owner's family folded their hands in silent thanks, unable to believe what they were witnessing. The judge leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Ravi, you understand that accusing someone of altering documents is serious. Do you have any support for this claim?" "Yes, sir," Ravi answered. He held up 2 copies of the account book. One was from earlier reports, the other from the current evidence. If you compare carefully, you will see differences. The stroke of the pen is not the same. The judge took the copies and studied them closely. His face grew thoughtful. He nodded once, then placed them back on the desk. You have made a strong point. The courtroom broke into murmurs again. People shook their heads in wonder. A boy had shown details that many had overlooked. The jury exchanged glances, realizing the case was not as simple as it first appeared. The judge finally spoke. Ravi, you may sit down for now. You have presented enough for the court to consider. This trial will continue, but your points cannot be ignored. Ravi nodded, closed his notebook, and sat down quietly. He did not smile or look proud. He only felt relief that he had been able to show the truth. As the session ended, the courtroom buzzed with talk. Everyone was speaking about Ravi, the boy who spoke like a lawyer and silenced the professionals. The judge himself sat in deep thought. Yesterday, he had mocked this teenager. Today, he was forced to admit that the boy had a mind sharper than many trained attorneys. For the first time in his career, the judge felt he might be watching the rise of someone truly extraordinary. The fourth day of the trial began with a strange energy in the courtroom. What was once a routine case had now turned into the talk of the town. People who never cared about court sessions were lining up to get a seat. The newspapers had written headlines about the mysterious teenager who spoke like a trained attorney. Some called him bold, others called him lucky, but all agreed he was worth watching. When Ravi entered the courtroom, heads turned. His steps were calm, his notebook in his hand, and his eyes fixed on the front. He did not show pride or nervousness, only focus. The shop owner, whose life depended on the outcome of this case, looked at him with hope. His own lawyer seemed more relaxed now, knowing that this boy had given the defense a new strength. The judge arrived and silence spread. His voice was firm as he opened the session. This court continues the hearing of the case. Yesterday, young Ravi presented points that cannot be ignored. Today we shall see if those points hold further weight. The opposing lawyer stood immediately. His face showed determination mixed with frustration. Your Honor, I cannot accept that this boy is treated as an equal in this courtroom. If he is to be allowed to speak, then let me challenge him directly. Let me question him as I would question any attorney. The judge studied the lawyer carefully. The room grew tense. Finally, the judge nodded. Very well. You may question him, but remember this court will not allow shouting matches. Ask what you wish and let the boy answer. Ravi stood, his notebook in his hand. He faced the lawyer without fear. The audience leaned forward, waiting for the clash. The lawyer's first question was sharp. You say the receipts do not match the witness statements. How do you know these receipts are genuine? Did you collect them yourself? Or are you trusting copies printed in newspapers? Ravi answered calmly. I compared the copies with the ones presented in court. They are the same. I did not collect them, but I studied them. The dates on the receipts cannot be changed by newspapers. They are clear for everyone to see. The lawyer frowned, then asked another. You claim handwriting differences in the account book. Are you a handwriting expert? Do you have a certificate? Ravi replied, I am not an expert, sir. But anyone with eyes can see when the strokes of a pen are different. The writing changes in style in the middle of the book. If you believe I'm wrong, you may call an expert to prove it. I am only pointing out what is visible. The audience murmured in agreement. Even the jury members nodded slightly. The lawyer's attempt to corner Ravi was failing. The lawyer grew more aggressive. Tell me, boy, what gives you the right to stand here? You are not an attorney. You are not trained. Why should the court waste its time listening to you? Ravi held his notebook closer and spoke with steady words. I have no title and I do not claim one. But truth does not need a title. If something is wrong, it must be shown. If I am mistaken, then the court can dismiss my words. But if I am right, then the truth will stand by itself. The words struck the courtroom like a spark. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of the judge tapping his pen. The lawyer opened his mouth to argue, but for a moment he found no reply. The judge cleared his throat. Your questions are fair, counselor, but the boy's answers are also fair. Continue if you wish, but keep it to facts. The lawyer tried a different approach. He began reading sections of law, long and complicated, hoping Ravi would be confused. But to his shock, Ravi recognized them. He repeated them in simpler words, explaining their meaning in plain language. The audience listened carefully, amazed at how easily the boy broke down difficult rules. The lawyer's face turned red with frustration. He threw one more question. If you are so wise, then tell me, what is the real reason behind these mismatches? Are you accusing my client of lying, or do you claim someone planted false evidence? Ravi paused. His eyes lowered for a moment as he chose his words carefully. I am not here to accuse without proof, but I will say this. The mismatches are too many to be mistakes. Someone either changed the records or gave false testimony. The court must look deeper if justice is to be served. The room exploded with whispers. The lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. Enough, the boy has spoken with reason. Whether his claims are correct will be decided, but his words cannot be ignored. The opposing lawyer sat down, defeated for now. His challenge had turned against him. Ravi returned to his seat, his face calm, though his heart beat faster inside. He knew this was only the beginning. The real fight was not with the lawyer, but with the truth hidden in the shadows of the case. The judge leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. For the second time, he looked at Ravi, not as a boy, but as someone who carried a spark of brilliance. The session ended with the sound of the gavel. As people left the courtroom, they spoke only of the challenge. They had come expecting to see the teenager fail, but instead, they had witnessed him stand his ground against a seasoned lawyer. Ravi walked out quietly, his notebook in hand. The path ahead was harder now, but deep inside, he knew he was ready to face it. The next day, the courtroom felt even heavier. The trial had changed from an ordinary fraud case into something far greater. People were no longer there just for justice. They were there to watch Ravi. Everyone wanted to know how a boy of 17 could keep standing against trained lawyers without losing his balance. Ravi entered the courtroom quietly, as he always did. His notebook was tucked under his arm and his eyes looked straight ahead. The crowd whispered as he walked past them. Some smiled with admiration, others still doubted him, but all were waiting to see what he would reveal next. The shop owner sat nervously at the defense table. His lawyer whispered to him, reminding him to stay calm. But it was clear that the man's real hope now rested on the young boy who had appeared like a miracle. The judge called the court to order. His voice was firm, but unlike the first day, there was no mockery in his tone. He now addressed Ravi with a sense of respect. Young man, he said, yesterday you faced direct questioning and stood your ground. Today, I want you to explain your understanding of the case more deeply. Tell this court what you believe is truly happening. Ravi stood slowly. He opened his notebook and turned to a marked page. His voice was steady as he began. Sir, when I first read about this case, it seemed simple. A shop owner accused of fraud, numbers not adding up, and witnesses speaking against him. But the more I studied the details, the less sense it made. The mismatches in receipts were not mistakes. The handwriting differences were not accidents. They pointed toward something hidden, and today I wish to show why I believe the shop owner is not guilty but rather a victim. The audience grew still. Even the opposing lawyer leaned forward, his eyes narrowed, sensing that something important was coming. Ravi explained how he had compared older records of the shop with the ones now presented in court. For years, he said, the shop owner's handwriting has been consistent. His style of writing numbers has never changed. But in this case, the account book shows two different styles. One belongs to him, the other clearly does not. Someone else has written in his book. The judge raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting forgery? Ravi nodded respectfully. Yes, sir. That is what I believe. The courtroom filled with gasps. Forgery was a serious accusation. The opposing lawyer stood at once. Your Honor, this is outrageous. This boy dares to accuse without evidence. He is spinning stories. But before the judge could reply, Ravi spoke again. I have evidence. If the court allows, I can show it. The judge nodded. Proceed. Ravi held up two papers. One was a tax record from the shop's earlier years. The other was the recent account book submitted as evidence. He asked the jury to look closely at the way the number 5 was written. In the older record, it was curved and neat. In the recent account book, it was sharp and angled. A person's writing style does not suddenly change after years of habit, Ravi explained. These are not the same hands. The jury passed the papers among themselves, whispering as they compared. Even the judge leaned forward, studying them carefully. Ravi continued, Not only this, but I found that the receipts submitted as proof were all printed by the same machine. Yet one of them is dated on a day when the shop's machine was out of order. The shop owner had reported it for repair. This means that receipt could not have been made in his shop. Someone else made it. The audience broke into whispers again. The shop owner's lawyer covered his mouth with his hand, stunned. He himself had not noticed this detail. The opposing lawyer jumped up. This is nonsense. Where did this boy get these papers? He has no authority to investigate, Ravi answered calmly. I found the repair report in public records. It was filed when the shop's machine broke down. Anyone can request such information. As for the tax record, it was published in a business directory 2 years ago. The judge looked at the lawyer with sharp eyes. Can you deny these facts? The lawyer hesitated. His lips tightened, but he said nothing. The judge turned back to Ravi. You may continue. Ravi spoke with quiet strength. He explained that the accusations were built on documents that were not trustworthy. He suggested that someone wanted the shop owner punished for reasons outside the law. This case is not about numbers alone, Ravi said. It is about someone trying to destroy a man's name by planting false evidence. The shop owner covered his face with his hands. Tears slipped through his fingers. For weeks he had been treated as a criminal, but now the truth was shining through. The judge leaned back, tapping his pen on the desk. His eyes were thoughtful. Young man, you are speaking of a conspiracy. Do you know how serious that is? Ravi bowed his head slightly. I know, sir, but I cannot stay silent when the truth is in front of me. The judge stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke. This court will call for handwriting experts to verify your claims. If what you say is true, then this case will take a very different turn. The gavel struck, ending the session. The courtroom buzzed with noise as people rushed to talk about what they had seen. Nobody cared about the trained lawyers anymore. Everyone spoke of Ravi, the boy who had uncovered hidden truths. As Ravi walked out with his notebook pressed against his chest, he felt the weight of what had just happened. He had not only defended a man, but had also revealed a deeper game being played. The road ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to walk it. The courtroom was silent when the experts entered the next day. Everyone wanted to know if Ravi's claims about the handwriting were true. The shop owner sat nervously, his hands clasped together. The opposing lawyer sat stiffly, his eyes fixed on the table, while Ravi calmly opened his notebook and waited. The judge asked the handwriting experts to step forward. They had studied the account books and receipts all night. Their report was thick and carefully prepared. One of the experts cleared his throat and began to speak. Your Honor, after examining the documents, it is clear that 2 different styles of handwriting are present. The shop owner's handwriting is consistent in older records, but the newer entries were written by someone else. The differences are too large to be explained by stress or age. We conclude that forgery has taken place. The courtroom exploded with murmurs. The shop owner gasped, covering his mouth. His lawyer quickly turned to him, whispering in disbelief. The opposing lawyer's face turned pale, but he tried to mask his shock. The judge raised his hand for silence. His voice was firm. This court accepts the expert's testimony. It seems the defense's argument has strong support. He turned toward Ravi. Young man, your observation was correct. The audience broke into whispers again, this time filled with admiration. A boy had done what grown men had overlooked. Ravi bowed his head respectfully, but inside he felt relief. The truth was finally reaching the surface. But Ravi knew this was only the beginning. If the documents were forged, then someone had deliberately created false evidence. That meant there was a mastermind behind the case, and he had not yet been exposed. The judge leaned forward. Ravi, you spoke yesterday of someone trying to destroy this man's name. Do you have any idea who might be behind it? The opposing lawyer quickly objected. Your Honor, this boy cannot make baseless accusations. He has no right to speculate. But the judge waved his hand. This court has seen the strength of his reasoning. Let him speak. Ravi took a deep breath. His voice was calm but carried through the room. I believe the one behind this is someone close to the shop owner. Someone who had access to his records and knew his business well. The shop owner looked up sharply, confusion in his eyes. Close to me? He whispered. Ravi nodded. Yes. Only someone inside would know when the machine broke down. Only someone trusted would have access to account books. The real question is, who benefits if the shop owner is destroyed? The audience froze. Everyone's eyes turned to the shop owner, waiting for him to respond. His face grew pale as he thought. Then slowly he whispered a name. My partner, he said. The one who left the business last year. Gasps filled the room. Ravi's eyes narrowed. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together. The shop owner explained, "We ran the shop together for years, but he left angry over money matters. He accused me of cheating him, though I never did. He wanted revenge. I thought he had moved on, but now I see his shadow behind this." Ravi stepped forward. "That explains everything. The forged handwriting, the false receipts, the sudden accusations. He wanted not only revenge, but also to ruin the shop's reputation so that he could take customers away." The judge's face grew stern. "This is a serious matter. If what you say is true, then this partner has committed fraud and tried to frame an innocent man." The opposing lawyer tried to stand again. "Your Honor, this is all talk. We cannot allow a child's guesses to decide the fate of this court." But before he could finish, Ravi held up another paper. "It is not only talk. I found this in the business directory archives." He handed it to the judge. "It is an advertisement placed just 2 weeks ago. The former partner opened a new shop across the street. He claims in the ad that his is the only honest shop in the area. He wanted to steal customers by making this man look like a criminal." The judge's eyes scanned the advertisement. His face darkened. He turned to the opposing lawyer. "Did you know of this?" The lawyer stammered, his voice unsteady. Your Honor, this is irrelevant." "Enough," the judge said sharply. His gavel struck the desk. "This court will summon the former partner to testify. Until then, the shop owner remains under protection of the court. No further accusations will be accepted without evidence." The courtroom roared with noise as the gavel struck again, ending the session. Outside, the crowd followed Ravi like he was a hero. People whispered his name, amazed that a teenager had uncovered such a plot. But Ravi did not smile. His face was calm, his notebook pressed tightly in his hand. He knew the storm was only growing stronger. If the former partner came to court, the case would explode into something even bigger. Secrets would come out and powerful people might try to silence the truth. The shop owner walked beside Ravi, his voice shaking. "You saved me, son. I don't know how to thank you." Ravi looked at him with steady eyes. "Don't thank me yet. The fight is not over. The truth is still hiding, and we must be ready to face it." That night, as Ravi sat alone in his small room, he stared at his notebook filled with notes and questions. The world now saw him as a genius, but inside he felt the weight of responsibility. Tomorrow, the real enemy would walk into court, and Ravi knew the battle was only beginning. The next morning, the courtroom was more crowded than ever. News had spread across the town that the shop owner's former partner would be summoned. People filled the benches, whispering excitedly, waiting to see what would happen. The air was heavy with tension. Ravi walked in quietly, holding his small notebook. He kept his head low, but the people around him moved aside with respect. Some even smiled at him, calling him the boy who spoke like a lawyer. Ravi did not let the attention distract him. He knew today was the most important day of the trial. The judge entered, his expression serious. After the usual formalities, the clerk announced that the former partner, Ramesh, had arrived. All eyes turned as a tall man in a dark coat walked in. His face was stern, but his eyes shifted nervously. He took his place at the witness stand. The judge spoke firmly. "Ramesh, you are called here to answer questions about this case. The court has reason to believe that you may be connected to the false evidence presented. You must tell the truth." Ramesh raised his hand, swore to speak honestly, and then sat down. His gaze wandered around the courtroom until it fell on Ravi. For a brief moment, his lips curved into a faint smirk, as if he did not take the boy seriously. The judge turned to Ravi. "You may begin your questions." Ravi stood slowly. He looked calm, but inside he knew this was a battle of minds. He stepped forward, his notebook open in his hand. "Ramesh," he began, his voice steady. "How long did you work with the shop owner?" 10 years, Ramesh replied quickly. "And why did you leave the business?" Ravi asked. Ramesh shifted slightly. "We had differences. He cheated me, so I left." Ravi looked up, his eyes sharp. "Do you have proof that he cheated you?" Ramesh hesitated. "Everyone knew it. It was clear. But do you have written proof? Receipts, letters, records?" Ravi pressed. Ramesh frowned. "No, but I know he did." The audience murmured, sensing cracks in his story. Ravi's voice grew stronger. "Then tell us, Ramesh, if you truly believed he was dishonest, why did you open your own shop only after this case began? Why not earlier?" Ramesh stiffened. I had no money before. Ravi held up the advertisement he had shown the day before. This ad proves you had enough money to start a new business. And you placed it 2 weeks before this case even began. How did you know the shop owner would be accused? How did you know his reputation would be damaged? The courtroom gasped. The judge leaned forward, his face stern. Ramesh's voice cracked slightly. It was luck. Just timing, Ravi shook his head. No, it was not luck. It was planning. You knew the documents would appear against him because you made them. You had access to the account books when you worked with him. You had the skill to copy his handwriting. And when the time came, you used that to frame him. The room fell into shocked silence. Ramesh's face turned red and he banged the table. This is nonsense. He is only a boy. Why should anyone believe him? But Ravi did not back down. His voice rang clear. Because the experts already proved the handwriting was forged. Because your ad shows you were ready to take his customers. Because your anger gave you a reason for revenge. Every piece of evidence points to you. The judge looked at Ramesh with hard eyes. Do you deny these facts? Ramesh's mouth opened, but no words came out. His hands trembled and sweat rolled down his forehead. The shop owner stood up, his voice breaking. Ramesh, why? After all our years together, why did you do this? Ramesh looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Finally, in a low voice, he muttered, I wanted him ruined. I wanted everyone to see him as a fraud, just like I believed he made me look. I thought I deserved his place. The courtroom erupted in noise. The judge struck his gavel again and again until silence returned. His face was grave. This court has heard enough. The evidence is clear, and even the accused himself has confessed. The shop owner is innocent. The real crime lies with Ramesh, who forged documents, spread lies, and tried to destroy another man's name. He will face charges for fraud and defamation. The crowd broke into applause, louder than ever before. Some even stood to clap. The shop owner, tears in his eyes, turned to Ravi and placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. You saved my life. I can never repay you. Ravi smiled faintly. You do not need to repay me, sir. Justice is the only reward I wanted. The judge looked at Ravi with deep respect. Young man, you came into this court as a boy mocked for his age. But you have shown the wisdom, knowledge, and courage of a true attorney. One day when you choose to study law formally, I believe you will become one of the finest lawyers this country has ever seen. The audience cheered again, calling Ravi's name. But Ravi only bowed his head, feeling the weight lift from his shoulders. He had fought for truth, and truth had won. As he left the courtroom, the sun was shining brightly outside. People gathered around him, praising him, but he quietly slipped away. He did not seek fame. He only wanted to honor his father's memory and keep learning. That evening, as he sat with his notebook in his small room, he wrote a single line at the top of the page. Justice belongs to those who never give up on truth. Ravi closed the book with a calm smile. The battle was over, but his journey had just begun.